Are you married but in love with somebody else? Well, this can be one of the most difficult situations to navigate, especially if you still love your spouse. So what's the right thing to do? Guys, Brad Browning here, marriage and relationship expert, and today I'll be talking about just that. What should you do if you're in a marriage and you're just totally enamored by somebody else? Well, the first question you should ask yourself is, do you still love your spouse? If the answer is no, and you've been out of love with your partner for a while, then the path forward might be a lot simpler. You could try and buckle down with your spouse, get marriage counseling, and try to make your marriage work. But if you think you've done everything you can to make it work with your spouse, then exploring the alternative option might be something you want to do. Of course, decisions like this are never easy. Finances, children, and family can all be considerations that you have to weigh carefully, and there's no sort of one-size-fits-all solution that can work for everybody. However, if you still care deeply about your spouse, there are several things to consider. First, you have to consider that you and your spouse have built a life together. You've probably spent years getting to know each other, and it's unlikely there are many people in the world that know you as well as your spouse does. You know what you're getting, and your spouse knows what they're getting too, and that is a huge advantage. And here's another thing to consider. When you meet someone new and exciting and you begin falling in love with that person, it's easy to overlook this new person's flaws, or you might not even see their faults at all. In fact, if there's anything that I know for sure, it's that this new person does have a myriad of other flaws that you aren't aware of yet, even though your emotions may be telling you otherwise. With your spouse, you really already know what you're getting, right? Now, of course, it isn't perfect. Nothing is. But you have to realize that chances are things won't be perfect with this new person either, and you do have to take that into consideration moving forward. Second, you know your spouse has committed to you. They've been through ups and downs with you, and yet he or she has still supported you and loved you through thick and thin. Now, the same can't be said about your new love prospect. How do you know that they'll be willing to tough out what you and your spouse have already been through? There's a huge unknown there, and that's a risk that you'll have to take if you do decide to leave your spouse. Third, if you do have children with your spouse, you're going to have to think about how it's going to affect their lives as well. And of course, this obviously complicates the situation even more. Fourth, there's a strong psychological fault that humans go through when they see something fresh. It's like that new shiny toy that you really want, but isn't necessarily better than something that's tried, tested, and true. Now, a great way to think about this situation is to ask yourself how you felt about your spouse before you met this brand new person. Did you still love your spouse dearly? Were you happy? Could you still picture a strong future together with that person? Well, if the answer to those questions is yes, then it's likely that the best action moving forward would be to stay and try to make it work with your spouse. Because chances are the infatuation that you might feel for this new person might be fleeting. Now, if you feel like there are massive problems in your existing marriage and you're totally fixated on them, then your spouse deserves to know. So it's therefore logical to voice your opinion and actively try and make things work out. That is what marriage is all about. When you decide to marry somebody, you're entering into an agreement that this lifelong commitment will be the focus of your entire life. So you need to exhaust everything with your spouse before you even think about a life with another person. If you do think that trying again with your spouse is the logical course of action moving forward, then you absolutely must do whatever you can to make sure that this new person is out of the picture entirely. So remove their contact from your phone and social media. If you work and you're around this person at work on a regular basis, you must do whatever you can to limit your contact with him or her. The more out of sight they are, the more out of mind they'll be for you. And you can concentrate on making your marriage as good as it possibly can be. Now, for more information on how to revitalize your marriage, I highly encourage you to check out my video on the subject. To watch that full video, just head over to marriageguy.com. Go ahead and check that out right after watching this video. However, if all of this advice is something that you simply can't relate to, if you really did try to fix everything with your spouse, and you know in your heart of hearts that you'll be way happier with this new person, then what you absolutely should not do is engage in an affair. I repeat, do not engage in an affair. I feel like this is pretty obvious advice, but it does need to be said. There are too many things that could go wrong with an affair, and if you choose to go down this precarious path, you might be asking for a world of hurt if your spouse ever finds out. What you should do is get the wheels in motion as quickly as possible and file for a divorce or separation. There's really no point in prolonging the suffering for you, and you'll be doing your spouse a favor by getting out of a marriage that you're not happy in. But only do this if you're actually sure about what you want here. And when you decide to break the news to your spouse, do your best to try and remain calm but unwavering. If they sense a bit of hesitation in your actions, they're going to try and fight for you, which will prolong the process and add to the heartache. Now, overall, this may be one of the most difficult decisions that you'll ever have to make in your life. And it is indeed life-altering. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Or if you think that your situation is totally unique, then you can think about enrolling in my marriage coaching program. For more information on this coaching service, just head over to marriageguy.com/coaching. I promise it's way less expensive than marriage counseling, and you can do it without your spouse ever finding out. Again, just go to marriageguy.com/coaching. And that is it for today. Good luck, and I'll talk to you again soon.